Welcome back to Sprague Homestead. Well, it's a nice sunny day here on the farm in February, and I will admit that this has me already getting some spring fever. I see a lot of people online that are already getting spring fever. Of course, some of you are still socked in with snow, but we're lucky that pretty much everything, as you can see, has melted off. We got a few spots here and there where we're holding some snow and stuff that just pretty much stays shady all the time. But because the weather is so nice in February, I'm already getting started on some stuff here in the garden. So we're going to go around and kind of look at the garden as a whole and talk about some of the things that are going to be changing. And I've got a couple of kind of ambitious projects going on out here. We'll see if we can get them all done or not. If you've been following along with us, you know that we have 3 different greenhouses that we grow the majority of our warm weather crops in. And last year in particular, I kind of ran out of room. I grow a lot of tomatoes to can a lot of sauce and salsas and that kind of thing. And by the time the tomatoes take up half the greenhouses, there's not a whole lot of room for a lot of stuff. So I had squash that meant a lot of cross-pollinating with each other. So, of course, none of those seeds are going to be viable for this year. So I'm kind of looking at moving some stuff around. Didn't have enough room for beans. Didn't have them cleaned up and ready to go early enough for peas here. So by the time I got my peas started outside, I lost most of them to an early fall frost. So I'm going to be doing some different stuff. But let's kind of go around and look at what's here and what's going to be changing this year. And hopefully I'll be able to do some videos as we kind of work through this. So they're all dry right now, but this bed and that bed and all the brown that you see on the ground between are my old strawberry beds. Now, actually, these guys are still pretty productive because I've let them runner. But the beds are choked to the point that you can't even get any, fresh compost or anything else on them. So it's really hard to use them. And the berry size is starting to suffer. Now, I've started some other beds, which I'll show you in a second. And they're doing really well. I'm starting to get good berries off of them. Some of those I just planted this last year, so they didn't do much. But what's going to end up happening is all of these plants, as soon as they green up enough that I can see what's alive and what's not, I'm going to dig them all up. We're going to go through and pick some of the younger plants. We'll go directly into beds. Some of the older plants I'll probably still put in beds, even though older plants don't produce as much. They do runner better than some of the younger plants. And what will end up happening is once they runner off, once I can get an idea of what the older plants are, they'll probably get pulled up and moved and planted somewhere else. Because the older the strawberry plants, the less productive they actually are. So I'm going to be pulling all this up. So this is going to be probably a good couple of days worth of project. I know it's really hard to see because they're all dead right now. But there are probably about 400 strawberry plants right here. A couple years ago, I had more strawberries than I knew what to do with. So they're going to move, and we're putting beds out this way. So all these wooden beds that I've got back here, and I've got 4 of them total, they are 3 foot by 6 foot. These are my strawberry beds. They don't look like a whole lot. A couple of these, like I said, just got planted this year, or this last year. So not doing a whole lot yet. Some of these are pine berries, some of them are bigger strawberries, but I'm going to expand these and add more. You can kind of see in the back, I've got a big dead spot in the garden, which we'll look at in a second. Time to kind of move it that way, and the strawberries will continue to do well, even in some shade. So it's back in this area that I'm going to put some more strawberry beds. You can kind of see my herb beds kind of stop. I've got room for 5 or 6 more herb beds down along this side of these arbors. So I'm going to go ahead and put some more herb boxes in there. You can never have too many herbs. They're great. Once you get them planted, they live pretty much forever. So I like no-fuss gardening. So I'll pick some stuff that's a little bit more shade-friendly because we do get some shade on this side of the garden. There's this great big spot, though, that, you can't have that many strawberry plants. At least I won't. And I'm actually kicking around a project that I'm not going to mention here because I want to see if I can actually get to it this year or not. But just know I'm saving a spot right now, about an 8 by 12 spot for something a little special. So we'll see if that actually comes around. But that's kind of what we're doing over here on this side of the garden. All right, and on this part of the garden, you can see these timbered rows. So I've got these rows. The timbers kind of define the row. There's one here, there's one here, there's one over there. These initially were for blackberries and raspberries. And when we first put this garden spot in, the sagebrush toxicity was so bad in the ground, it killed everything, even blackberries. So they didn't really make it. I do have like 3 plants that have survived all this time. They just now started actually growing 5.5 years later. The raspberries this last year took off, but you can kind of see they're not even close to in the row anymore. So the plan has been to raise these up a little bit. I'm going to stack some timbers on them, go ahead and pull all the weeds back out, fill them back in, and then start moving the raspberries back into the row. This is going to be kind of a big project. I've actually got to put up some kind of trellis structure for them. Hopefully they actually grow tall enough this year, but at least a trellis, or maybe I can cover them if nothing else, to try and get them to actually grow. So one of the biggest projects in this garden for this year is going to be these arbors. So these originally started off as grape arbors because I grew grapes in Mississippi and they did really well. So they're, basically like a 16-inch by 8-foot bed on both sides of these great big hoops, and there's 3 of them. Well, a couple of things happened. Of course, the sagebrush toxicity, which I talked about, but also with our erratic freeze-thaw every year, I can't keep them alive. I've picked varieties that are really good for northeastern climates, and we still can't get them to grow here. Every time we've gotten them to where they start looking like they're going to do something, we get a late frost, burn everything off, and stunt the plants, or, send it into some kind of shock, and they die. So I'm giving up on grapes. If you can make grapes work in Klamath County, drop me a line and let me know how to do it. I, however, am moving on. So basically what we're doing, we're taking these things and I'm actually building in a piece to connect them. And we're going to turn it into one giant 32-foot long high tunnel. I feel like high tunnels and greenhouses around here make a huge difference. So we're going to do that instead. Now this is kind of going to be in the same vein as the cattle panel greenhouse that we did. The difference being that it's shorter, so I'm going to have to hand make my doors. I'm going to put a door on each end for airflow. And because the beds are already more or less in, I'm stacking them. So I'm going to leave the beds in the back and raise them. And then I'm going to do a shorter bed in the front. The big thing is what I'm planning to utilize this for is like beans and early peas and things that can still use the structure. You can kind of tell they're kind of wobbly, right? Because they don't have any structure. So I'm going to put a ridge pole down the middle. Being that the weather's so nice, I've already started working on it. So I've got some of the beds already raised up, started putting them together. This will probably be an ongoing thing. I'm hoping, if the weather stays good, to have it done by early to mid-March. We'll see. I've still got to order a cover for it. And then I'm going to have to bring in some soil, compost, that sort of stuff to actually get it filled in. But hopefully, spring peas will be going in here. Well, back here, it's more of the same. I've got some spots for some garden beds yet. I've got a bunch of 2x12s that Dad brought. So I'm going to build a couple more big beds back here. And then it's time to empty out the composter and actually do something with it, because it's gotten a little to the full side. So more garden beds going in back here. And probably either here or even over here by these berry fins, I'm probably going to go ahead and add some more asparagus. The asparagus beds that we've got over here have done really well, but I'd like to do some more, and I don't really want to use some of these bigger beds. So definitely going to somewhere either here or over there, add some more asparagus this year. So one of the last things we'll talk about, other than the crazy puppy mauling me, is some of these other beds back here, some of the ones that have been in for a while. I've been looking online. Water's a big issue for us here, and I hate having to use a bunch of water for the garden. I know it's kind of a necessary evil, but we can't really rain barrel here. We get too much snow and ice, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. I'm looking into some of that kind of stuff too. But I'm always looking for ways to make the garden more efficient. So we can't really do hugelkultur here. That's that raised mound bed type stuff where you put wood in the bottom. Mostly because with all the little predators and all the little vermin that I have here, I've got to be able to screen it off. And when you start talking mounds, it gets kind of complicated on how to cover them. But there is a gentleman overseas, and I can't remember exactly where he's at, that I've been talking to a little bit online, that said you can do them in raised beds. You just have to be careful to keep your wood structures, or your wood pieces on the inside 3 and 4 inches away from your exterior wood, so that your exterior wood isn't getting that much more wet than it needs to be. If you've got raised beds, you know that it pretty much, the timbers that make the bed stay wet anyway. But what I'm going to end up doing is to experiment with this. Probably some of these new beds, we're actually going to go ahead and put some rotting wood in the bottom and do kind of a modified hugelkultur type deal with wood kind of as our base, and then we'll layer them up like you do in hugelkultur and kind of see how it goes. I'm also going to do some mulching this year, which I don't usually bother with for a million different reasons. But this year I'm actually going to go ahead and do that in a few beds and just see where we're at. So a lot of interesting stuff going to be happening in the garden. If you've paid much attention, you know that I am a rather ambitious gardener. I have, I want to say there's 8 beds in each of the dome greenhouses. Plus I bucket in tomatoes. And then I've got a 16-foot cattle panel greenhouse. So I grow lots and lots and lots of stuff. And I'd like to get more production out of the garden out here. This year I got very little. Just a whole bunch of, it was late getting stuff in. It was an earlier frost. We had snow for the first time in like September. So it didn't do real well. Even the cold weather crops just couldn't handle the variance in temperature and precipitation and things. We got some stuff. I got a pretty good haul on broccoli and kale and that sort of stuff. And got some carrots this last year for the first time. So we'll be doing some of that kind of stuff again. And trying some new stuff. Because, hey, this whole gardening thing is an adventure, right? So we're going to give a bunch of new stuff a try. I have some new plants coming. I ordered them a while back. We've got some elderberries coming. I spent a whole bunch of money and I couldn't even tell you what I ordered. I think I ordered some more currant bushes because I've got currants on the outside that finally did some good this last year. I know I ordered berry plants. Guess you'll be as surprised as I will when they show up. So that's a little snippet of what we will be doing, hopefully, here in 2020 in our garden. I'm sure there'll be other stuff as it comes through, and I'll try and do some videos on some of these projects as we're rolling through them. But especially when we get our hugelkultur bed started. And yeah, if you've got questions about what we're doing, comments, leave them down the bottom. You know what to do. And we will get back to you as soon as we can. That's it from today from Sprague Homestead. May all your gardening dreams come true this year. Hoping mine will. See you next time. Happy homesteading.